Dear patrons, good morning and thank you for joining us on an action-packed week at LD. We worked hard in the off-season to ensure our audience the top names in the small and microcap space. Last week we had Voyager Digital, which proved to be very popular. This week we start with a name that is timely and doing something big for not just existing shareholders, but for the entire world at large. It is rare to find a company that has all the ingredients necessary to succeed, and ME2C Environmental, ticker MEEC, finds itself at a distinct inflection point. MEEC is a leading environmental company focused on delivering patented and proprietary solutions to the global power industry. Using its patented sorbent enhancement additive, or C, the company helps the coal industry capture mercury emissions, large cost savings, and immediate plant improvements. ME2C is also active on the patent front, with nearly half the uh, coal-fired power plants currently infringing on the company's technology. They have been successful in getting four major players in the space to settle and use their know-how to their benefit. Joining us on the call today is a man I am looking forward to connecting with in person shortly, Mr. Richard McPherson, the CEO of ME2C. Richard, thank you again for spending your time and energy with our community today. The floor is now yours.
Chris, thank you very much. Pleasure joining you folks today, and I appreciate the time and energy you put into making us part of your team. I'd like to run through a general presentation and look forward to opening up to questions afterwards. So without further ado, I'll jump into the presentation. ME2C, or ME2C Environmental, as we've recently renamed ourselves, are an environmental technology company. We started out in North Dakota back in 2008 and have worked diligently in the coal-fired energy business for the past 12, 13 years, and have been able to establish a position within the energy business that's very commanding at this point, and we look forward to our growth going forward. I'd like to start by talking about our past to give you a better sense of who we are and where we're going, and how we became a leading clean tech technology company, helping the power industry transition to a more sustainable future. The legal disclosure, of course, is part of all of these presentations and will be available to everybody to read in detail post-presentation. Our past, how we became a leading environmental technologies firm. Just a variety of scenes here from our past, actively working over the last decade or more throughout the country in the power energy industry. We've established a home base in Texas, just south of Dallas in Corsicana. We've also got a major facility in Texarkana where we do all of our custom mixing and material arrangements. We've done business successfully for some time now. And in 2011, once we had finished all of our basic testing and demonstrations across the country, we landed our first major client, which was a large double boiler operation in Washington State. They're still a client today, even though we compete on a regular basis during the renewal process with all of the competitors in the field. And that's very typical of our relationship building once we've established a position within a client. We've not lost any of our long-term clients and carry a nice base of business into 2021. So what I'd like to do is just keep moving forward to talk about our technology a little more. We had this mercury chemisorption model, which was developed by the Energy Environment Research Center in North Dakota through who now is our CTO, our Vice President of Technologies, John Pavlish. John and team created this model, which allowed us to create the technology that was widely adopted by almost 45% of the coal-fired utilities across the country. Our industry leading technologies have really made a difference in the air quality across North America while the coal-fired fleet is operating. Early on, we had some terrific success as we introduced the technologies and demonstrated them, and the new federal regulations took effect back in 2015 and 16, our business ramped up nicely. and we were projecting some great gains through 17 and 18 as well. But we ran into a snag in that the technologies, although patented, were not really respected at the level we expected them to across the industry. And some of the leading suppliers of the materials of the process itself started dealing directly with the utilities. And so they adopted variations of our technology and continued to implement the technology without us being involved. So in 2016, we realized that was a bit of a peaking point for us, given that everybody was starting to adopt around us. So in 2017, we made a big decision to stop moving forward from a sales point of view and retrench our patent position so that we wouldn't have to keep competing against ourselves as we went to market. And so we successfully completed that entire process in 2019. We had bought out all of the technology rights and patents. We improved them significantly. And then in 2019, we went back to the market and filed a number of different lawsuits to stake our claim on these processes that had been so widely adopted across the fleet. Our revenue had declined over that period of time, and we recognized that we needed to reposition ourselves to have a rebirth, a regrowth of the technology value and enterprise value to the company. So talking about our present and where we are with that right now, we truly are a sustainability-focused environmental technologies firm. We have a number of terrific partners at this point, and we have license agreements for our technologies in place with all of them. They form a very strong base of business for us going forward, and we're building on that on a regular basis as we go forward. We realized back in 2017 that we needed to keep our costs down in order to be able to retrench and rebuild the company so that we could have this inflection point that we're now seeing. So all of the management team, including myself, cut our wages drastically. We cut all of the expenses that we could, and we maintained the best possible supply chain agreements with the material suppliers that we had. So in that case, what we were able to do is put together a real tight management plan to get us to where we are today. One of the opportunities that are in front of us that we've embarked on is a claim that the refined coal folks that have been operating a tax credit plan or scheme over the last 8-9 years have been using our technologies, our patented technologies, in order to be able to facilitate their programs. So we have a case against them, which we filed in 2019, approximately 39 different entities, LLCs, that are put together to operate this tax plan. And it's moving forward, and we're pleased with the direction it's taking. It's in front of the judge at this time, continues to be. And we expect that we will have some clarity on those claims in the coming weeks or months. We're very optimistic about our opportunities there to claim some value for our shareholders, and that's yet to be factored in any way in any of our projections that we've made with regards to our revenue going forward. And we will keep everybody apprised of that as we do so. Our approach, given that we are now trying to monetize our patent process, which is being utilized, we feel, by a huge swath of the coal-fired industry, is a business-first approach. We very much want to be able to supply these businesses and build relationships with them. We're the developers of the technology, and we're very confident there are efficiencies we can bring to the table that they're not now seeing, which would almost completely offset any possible increase in cost to changing over to our technologies. So we very much have a business-first approach, and our strategic plan is to develop commercial supply and service contracts that come with a license rather than just licensing operating systems of our technologies at this point. So where's our future? Where do we go from here? Our sustainable technologies will lead to a lot of different opportunities for us and our shareholders going forward. We're well positioned for continued growth, helping make the world a better place for all stakeholders. We have a sustainability first approach, and it'll always be our focal point of existence. Our ambitions and goals are centered around making the world a better place, and we've been doing that for over a decade now. We've talked about who we were and who we are, so let's talk about who we're now becoming as a company. First of all, the coal-fired industry is a very difficult one to understand at this point, as it's going through massive change. Most of the intelligence out there talks about it going away. And we do think that there would be a carbon zero future at some point, but it's a long ways off. And there's a lot going to be happening between now and then that will keep coal as a main focus of the energy requirements of the country. And the coal-fired operators themselves are leading the direction with regards to reducing CO2 emissions. But there are some basic realities that we all live with. And so our objective is to minimize emissions while coal is being used as a core source of energy for the country. So there actually are some increases that we see happening in coal-fired generation over the next couple of years. I think basically because of the increase in gas prices that are expected, coal will actually maintain its present position and grow 1% or 2% over the next 3 to 5 years. And along with what I've just said, EIA in particular projects that there will be an increase in coal-fired generation over the next few years. There will be consolidation, but the overall main thrust of the industry will be solid for a number of years to come. And that speaks well of our commercial activity and opportunity to keep things moving forward with the least amount of emissions possible. With regards to our future and our potential from a revenue point of view, given that we have these 4 initial major settlements in place, we're able to project the actual potential of the revenue base that we are now servicing, the folks that are utilizing our process and that we feel should either take a license with us or move forward with regards to our supply of their product line. So for 2021, we have a potential of 47 million in gross revenue on a supply side, or 23 million should we just license those opportunities. Either way, we would see approximately 11 million drop to the bottom line as a cash profit. In 2022, that number rises to 74, 38 on the license model, and a bottom line of 22 million. And then it peaks and levels off in 2023 with a potential of 100 million or roughly 60 plus million in licensing, with approximately 40 million on each of those years thereafter in terms of an actual bottom line cash profit. So we have some terrific potential ahead of us. We're now actually in field demonstrating our technologies at some of the settlement clients that we now have, and we're hoping to change some license fees into actual supply side contracts. So we'll be reporting back to the market as we proceed with those. I expect in the very near future, possibly later this month, if not early April. So that will give us a much better handle on how this will play out over time and give us a sense of what the actual revenues will be and the EBITDA, so that we can give some hard guidance. We look to do that as soon as possible, but I really want to sort out the difference between licensing and supply side before I give that guidance. We have the infrastructure in place now, fully paid, to support over 100 million in potential revenue. So we need zero capital in terms of being able to actually ramp the business up and see this supply side chain grow as we're anticipating and working towards. This infrastructure was put in place in 2017, has yet to be commissioned, and has the great opportunity for us to utilize now that we are out there seeking new supply chain contracts. One of the other things that we've been able to do over the last couple of years while we were working on the IP front was take our technology know-how and apply it to another industry that has huge potential. The oil and gas business and the methane emission side of that industry is a huge opportunity for technology companies like ourselves that have strength and proven ability in capturing emissions. And the methane emission side of the opportunity in this field should be huge. We expect it will be heavily regulated even later, as soon as later this year. So we started in about 2 years ago on developing technologies using our know-how in order to be able to bring something to the market as a solution. I can report that we're moving along nicely with that. We expect to go into field trials most likely next quarter, and hope to have a commercial opportunity available to the market by the end of the year, which would be nicely matched up with new regulations that we would think quite possibly could be in place early in 2022. So that's a whole new model for us. We've yet to give any guidance with regards to what our financial stake in that would be. But just in the US, it's a $10 billion a year potential industry. And we think we've got a real shot at being a player in that. So I guess in summary, folks, what I'd like to leave you with today is we have a sustainability first approach. We're uniquely positioned to deliver value to the energy industry through our patented pollution mitigation process. A macroeconomic tailwind. The coal-fired generation in the United States is projected to remain stable through 2025, operating through 2050, even though there will be efforts on all sides, including within the industry, to reduce that carbon footprint. We have a recurring revenue model with a paid-for infrastructure. The current paid-in for structure can support $100 million in revenue annually, and we have that potential identified out there, and we're moving forward to try to capture that. Along with that, we've got this technology expansion that we've been working on for a couple of years, and I'll bring more information to the market over the next 2 weeks, specifically in how we're moving forward with that and some potential partnering opportunities that we've been working on as well. We'll give some clarity to. So we have emerging opportunities in coal ash cleanup and wastewater remediation that would provide significant high margin revenue potential, leveraging these established industry partnerships that I've referred to. The expected new regulations on methane that I've spoke to will provide an incredible opportunity for our developing technologies as well. Before I get to the capital markets commitment, I want to digress a bit and talk a bit about where we are with our core business. Our core business now, the mercury capture business, is extremely well positioned for us to be able to capitalize on all of the adoption that's taken place. I'm in Dallas here today, meeting with Caldwell Cassidy Curry, our attorneys that have done such a great job so far. And we very much are moving forward actively, engaging many of the dozens of folks that are using our processes in order to be able to come to agreements on how we can monetize this for the shareholders and the company going forward. And I will be bringing more information to the market on the results of those active involvements that we're now carrying out as we go forward. So I'll move on to the capital markets commitment. We have engaged the MZ Group in order to get the message out to the markets broadly and in full detail, because we're very much a changed company for where we were the last few years. And we're starting to see the growth and the monetization value that we always felt we deserved. So the next few months will be exciting. The years ahead will be exciting as we continue to grow and expand. And I think MZ will help us very much in terms of getting that message out. And one of the keys to that will be an uplisting to the NASDAQ. We expect and hope to have that accomplished in the first half of this year. And I think it'll be very important for us to be able to make that step as we go forward. So that's in closing where we are at this point. If you would like for us to take some questions, Chris, be happy to do so.
Rick, we have a ton. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to do all the legal questions first,
Yes,
just to kind of make it easy, and then we can get to the nitty and gritty later. Okay.
sure.
So the first question is, can you kind of tell us what your patent approach has been like since you started? I'm assuming it's kind of the path of least resistance. You contact these guys, you talk to their attorneys, you talk to management. Kind of give us some color as to how that relationship starts.
Sure. So in the past, what we've done, for example, the first 4 major utilities that we engaged with through Caldwell Cassidy Curry, they, of course, needed to understand completely what our claims were. They forwarded that information to their external attorneys and then brought back the information to the corporate folks. Corporate folks related back and forth between us and our attorneys. And we agreed that the best path forward was to have them take a license to continue using our process. And also along with that comes the opportunity for us to earn their supply side business. From a company point of view, as the founder, I have very much always wanted to just to grow our business and have people utilize the technology to be able to improve the emissions they have as cheaply as possible. So we're going to continue down that process. That's what we established with the folks that we already settled with, and that's what we're moving forward with the group of folks that we're now engaged with.
Historically, as one of the largest investors in companies that are IP plays and microcap, I've learned a thing or two over the years.
Sure.
Has it become easier for you guys to talk with the existing defendants as a result of the settlements that you've already made?
Yes, and there are no existing defendants. We actually are in a position now where we've engaged with about a dozen folks that we feel are infringing on the technology, and we have very good business discussions underway right now. So the first 4 defendants were settled and favorably for all involved. We still have this massive group of refined coal defendants out there. And as I mentioned, Chris, it's still in front of the judge for him to make some decisions to go forward. So I can't comment any further. However, we have actively engaged another dozen or so folks that we feel are using our technology without a license. And I must say, we're having good back and forth discussions with them at this point. And I very much expect to come to terms with the majority, if not all of them, either on a license agreement or on a supply side. So we'll be bringing that news to the market as it develops over the next month or 2.
And this is another question. The coal industry does have, a little bit of resistance right now as an overall industry. What makes you think you guys are going to be successful in collecting money when a lot of the coal industry is not doing well at the moment?
So Chris, here's the thing. A lot of the coal business is not doing well, but there's a core amount of coal-fired utilities that must be running in order to provide the base load that keeps things happening. Look at Texas, for example, recently. If it wasn't for the coal output in Texas, it would have been a complete disaster. And folks understand that. So although the industry has declined in terms of its total output, it's expected to actually increase a couple of percent over the next year or 2 due to the price of gas. And that core amount of business generates a huge potential for us. So even though there's a smaller coal-fired operation, it generates $100+ million of potential business for us. And we expect it to stay stable for the next 3 to 5 years at least.
Do you guys believe that the number of settlements will be similar this year to what you were able to accomplish last year?
Well, I think it will increase significantly this year, given the precedent-setting position that we're now in. We addressed 4 of the major utilities in order to be able to show the rest of the industry from the smaller utilities on up, that we are a credible company with a process that is well patented and protected. And I think we've accomplished that. Whether it turns into an all-out domino effect through the year, we're yet to see. But we've got very encouraging interaction with the first tranche of follow-up um, uh, folks that we've engaged with.
Has the company publicly disclosed what its relationship is with its existing council? Is it on a contingency basis or is it hourly?
No, we've not done that in detail for legal reasons, but I can say the Caldwell Cassidy Curry folks have been extremely accommodating. Not only has the cost been reasonable, but they allowed us to go into a business first approach. And this is really unique and helpful in that when we come to agreement with any of the folks that we're now engaged with, they're more than willing to be a partner in the cost base of ongoing supply side, so that we don't have any huge settlement payments to them. We don't have any huge ongoing overbearing costs by utilizing them. They basically replaced our cost of sales at this point going forward because the adoption has already taken place. So the administrative legal costs to manage the monetization of that adoption is very reasonable and very businesslike in the way it's been set up.
Outside of the US, are the patents enforceable in Canada and Europe?
We have yet to have them challenged in those areas. We do have patents in place that we think are valid. With regards to Canada, there's not a huge opportunity there just due to the size of the output. So we probably would not focus on that. Globally, we'll be working on a licensing model with entities that are based in those countries. And so they'll take on the protection role for us.
Excellent. So let's get down to the nitty and gritty. Okay. I really like this one. On the government front, has anything happened recently that basically makes the coal industry have no choice but to use you guys?
No, and I must preface this by saying they're already using us, and there's no real opportunity to change from that process, that technology. The regulations that are in place are strong. They're going to stay there, and the facility that they have in place of using our process to mitigate mercury emissions is going to stay there. And so, as long as unless the rule goes away, which is not very probable given where we are today, then things will stay as they are. Almost 45% are using our technologies, and we're approaching them and contacting them to take licenses to continue doing so.
So this is in reference to page 5 of your slide deck, which is potential revenue assumptions.
Yes.
Obviously, this interested party was asking, whether a jump from 5% to 55% in a year is possible. How do you ultimately see yourselves getting to that number?
So I think it is possible. Right now, for example, as I mentioned, we have a dozen prospective clients in negotiations, and they in themselves would be enough for us to get to that 55%. I think with the precedent of the original 4 settlements, we have a great deal of strength positioned. And the thing is, Chris, we are approaching and dealing with these folks in a way that makes sense to them commercially. We're not just somebody trying to grab a buck because we've got a patent. We're very much looking forward to demonstrating at their plants, showing them how we can improve their process, and moving forward as a commercial partner, rather than talking about infringements and back damages and all these sorts of nasty things that typically are in IP plays. This is not a play. This is a small tech company trying to earn its place that it rightfully believes that it owns, and build its business.
Can you kind of discuss what the ROI is for your existing customers? Is there a lot of CapEx that needs to go on for them to ultimately deploy your technology? How does that kind of model work?
Well, Chris, the best part about it is everybody that's using the technology has exactly what they need for us to start to supply them. It's just typically having our truck land at the site rather than somebody else's. It's that simple. In a lot of cases, we might change a few of the augers because we will reduce the amount of material they need to use, but no CapEx to change from us and be a fully licensed operating entity of our patented process.
So what's the, I mean, I'm then curious, what's the number one reason why people would say no to you guys? Is it just because, it doesn't hurt that? I mean, what do you ultimately think the catalyst is going to be to convert most of the industry?
I think it's just really awareness, Chris. Had our head down for the last 3-4 years while we've redone the company and put our package back together. Had I known this was going to happen, we'd have done it back in 2013, 14, 15, but better late than never. What we're going to be able to do, I think, just through awareness, is have folks understand that this is a patented process. It's a great process. They should keep using it. They just need a license in order to keep doing so. And I don't think there's any real major pushback going to come from the industry, which is, a very solid industry. This is not an industry that wants to infringe on a small environmental technology company. This is an industry that's a stand-up industry that I think once the facts are known, will very quickly come to the table and either take a license or allow us to supply.
Cool. So this is in reference to slide 6, the potential recurring revenue. The question is this based off already settled agreements, or this is more of a forecast on what you think you can do down the road?
It's a combination of the settlements we already have underway and the potential of, for example, the folks that we're now in negotiations with. And others that we've yet to reach out to. So this is a combination of everything, and also combined with the negotiations that we now have ongoing, on top of the settlements we've received, we're in market demonstrating as we speak at plants in order to be able to earn their supply side. So there's a lot going on now in terms of what that potential is going to look like as it rolls out as fundamental results throughout the year. But I very much expect that we're going to be profitable, that we're going to grow quarter over quarter over quarter, and I'll be able to give some solid guidance as to revenue once I see, as I mentioned earlier, whether folks are going to take a license or whether they're going to allow us to supply. That'll change the revenue numbers significantly, but the bottom line numbers are set up in that they should stay about the same.
Roger. Can you guys go over CapEx and how that has changed since 2017? And this is from a gentleman who met you guys at the LD Micro Conference a few years back.
Sure. So in 2016, we had a big year, 32 plus. We were ramping up, expecting to do 70 to 80 million the next year. Before the 50 plus demonstrations that we had done around the country showed enough people how to basically do what it is that we do, in that they were then started to buy directly from the chemical companies themselves. So we invested and spent the cash back in 17 to put all of the infrastructure in place to be able to ramp up to the 100 million, which we see as the potential now. Going forward from here, CapEx really is not necessary other than just adding more bodies and more leased vehicles to deliver product. The tests themselves, the demonstrations, are paid for by the utilities. So really, we're just trying to ramp things up. And so the huge percentage of new revenue will go to the bottom line.
So you think that, if this was a baseball game, you're probably at the bottom of the ninth when it comes to overall infrastructure spend?
Yeah, we don't really have any significant infrastructure spend whatsoever. We have the warehousing in place. We have the distribution system in place. We have the manufacturing stuff in place, and it's all paid for.
Excellent. What are the alternatives to your C technology, and what does the competitive landscape for you guys look like?
Okay, so here's a very important point. Good question. The alternatives are not really viable. At this point in time, the adoption that's taken place is the adoption that we expect will stay in place over the next number of years. So we very much expect that there will be no change in how the pie is cut up here in terms of who's using what to capture mercury. It'll basically stay the same. Whether we press a claim or not, the industry is not going to change from what it's doing today.
Rick, can you give us a little bit of color on the current share count? What does the cap structure look like right now?
So basically, we've got about 80 million shares issued. We've got about 28% of that is insiders. A lot of the ownership of the company have been with the company as a shareholder for 5 to 10 years now, and we have a very solid base. We very much expect that moving forward, we'll be able to, one of the main goals is reduce the actual debt of the company. And so recently we've removed 2 tranches of convertible notes. We've converted those to stock. Those are now taken off the board. We have one more tranche that I'd like to remove. We have some forced convert options with that. I'd like to remove that prior to the uplisting, which would most likely mean it has to happen in the next quarter. Then we would be in great shape going forward to meet the requirements of the NASDAQ.
Understood. And then do you guys have any warrants outstanding?
Yes, not a lot, and none that are significantly in the money at this point. And that would be cleaned up with this next and final convertible note tranche that we'll clean up. So I very much expect that won't be an issue going forward.
Have insiders purchased any shares in the last 12 months in the open market?
No, they haven't. There's been a lot of things going on which have kept us from doing that. Mostly because, as you know, Chris, you can see the stock has, the stock's gone up 5-6 times in the last 2-3 months.
Correct.
I really don't think it would have looked appropriate if we had been buying stock knowing what was coming. But it's not to say that now that we've reached a more significant value, that the insiders won't now step in and pick up stock. And we would need to make notice of that through the proper channels, and we would, of course, do that.
As a public company executive now, I feel you on that, because we typically get blacklisted a lot based off pending news. So respect on that. And then I know this might be a painful question to answer, but what is your current NOL?
I actually I should get back to on that with regards to an actual number. I don't have the answer for you that in a fashion that I can be guaranteed is correct.
Respect. And you got to realize that NOL is going to be very valuable now that you get into profitability. So
yeah, it's very, very significant and will help us a great deal going forward. Last time I looked, it was in the 30 million range. I just don't know exactly where it is. Excuse me. And the changes that we've made with the converts and whatnot, I don't know how that's affected it, but I will be happy to get back to you with an answer that you can post.
Is there any current published research on the company right now?
Nothing as we speak. We're actively engaged in discussing coverage with a number of different entities at this time. But nothing formal as we speak.
And then finally, this is my question I usually ask every executive that comes on Zooming with LD. Where do you see most of your time being spent on a day-to-day basis?
Right now, it's a combination of getting the news out as to our rebirth as a company and what we really stand for now and globally as we move forward in these other areas. We've got some really exciting stuff happening, Chris, which I'll bring to the market over the next week or two that we've been working on for the last couple of years. So we're very excited about the new stuff that we've been working on, finally being able to bring it to market. Look forward to doing that. A lot of work been going on in the last little while with regards to getting ready to move to a main exchange. That's a whole job in itself. So that's underway, a lot of time being spent there, and leading the charge into these other new areas of development is very exciting. And so we very much look forward to continuing that. And as you see us roll out more information over the next month, you'll have a better understanding of the answer to that question.
Excellent. Thank you for that. So for everyone who is currently tuned in, there are two ways that you can ask a question. We have 6 lined up in the queue right now. You can use the Q&A function, which is below my finger, or you can email me at chris@ldmicro.com. So let's take a few more questions. Let's see. So our first question is, Bill, one of the best in the business. If materials have better margins than licensing fees, why do you have the same cash earnings?
Okay, great question, Bill. The whole thing about the operating side of it is we will get more margin on the supply side, but it takes us longer and more effort to get there. The licensing, it comes down to more of a strategic approach. I would rather have a client that I'm building a relationship with on a supply side than a license, which is just a check in the mail once a year that you're really not providing any additional value to. So with regards to the materials versus licensing, much prefer material supply than licensing, but we have to earn that. It's not a given. So we start out with a license agreement with an option for supply, and then we have to go out, demonstrate, and earn that supply business. If we're successful in that, then that will generate more margin for us long term. If not, then we must rely just on the licensing side, which provides less value both to us and the client.
Could you please discuss how quickly you are burning cash?
We are profitable at this point. We are not burning more cash than we are bringing in. We are going into 2021 with a base core business prior to any of the settlements of $12.5 million worth of revenue this year, with a core operating cost of somewhere in the 10.5 to 11 million range. So we're in great shape as a core company. We're a solid core tech company with a base of business that we can operate from long term with this huge uptick in new business and very little capital outlay to get it.
And then how much liquidity do you guys have available on your balance sheet?
7-figure, but I have yet to give guidance exactly on what that is. And we have typically a couple of million in receivables on an ongoing basis as well. So we are not cash strapped at all.
Excellent. And then can you give us some, this is from JD, can you give us some more detail about refined coal's financial impact?
The refined coal operation, as reported by the federal government, is a $1 billion a year tax credit scheme. It's been operating for 8.5 years. We contend that its core is based on our patented technology. We filed suit in 2019. So from that point forward, it has another year to go. We feel that we will have significant claim against its operations. We are hoping that we would get to a point where a jury would be able to take a look at this. And if that's the case, we think that there is a huge appreciation for the value of our technology and all that they've been able to create in wealth over the last decade.
And then final 2 questions. What will the company do with the cash generated moving forward?
We'll continue to utilize that both for a combination of shareholder value, perhaps repatriating some of that cash in a dividend sort of environment. But also one of the key objectives is to grow the company as an environmental company around the globe, starting here in the US, of course, focusing on this wastewater remediation, the methane technologies that we're working on, and another very significant area that's combined with our wastewater remediation efforts, which I'll be making known in the near future, along with some partnership announcements. So growing the company overall, I guess, Chris, is the big side. And I think once we get on a main exchange and start to broaden out what we're doing, there's all kinds of opportunity for us to be able to grow the company going forward. I want us to use our technologies to both remediate the declining and past situation in the coal-fired industry, while we also work with the growing emphasis on carbon zero technologies that are going to be necessary going forward.
And then this is, I want to end it with my own question. What will you tell us you guys accomplished operationally 3 years from now?
I think you'll hear from us in that we've been able to successfully monetize the technologies that changed and supported the mercury capture of the coal-fired industry for a decade. And we'll also be a leading new technology company in a broad spectrum of energy applications. We hope specializing on both methane emissions and the remediation of these coal ash ponds that are a plague across the country.
Where can people find out more information on your company?
The website, ME2C, Midwest Energy Emissions Corp. We'll keep it updated, and we're going to do so through MZ Group as we go forward.
And for anyone who just submitted a question just now, and if I didn't catch it, just please send it over. I will forward it to the appropriate party. Mr. McPherson, thank you again for your time today. I will definitely see you on the other side.
Chris, thank you very much. And folks, thanks so much for listening in.
Be well.
Bye-bye.